Alright everyone, I'm back with the Percy Jackson content you don't have to worry about ever hearing about. My debut novel, Home to the Wild, out now at all stores. Link in the description box down below. I'm so sorry. But yeah, I'm back with Percy Jackson. You probably will have to hear about the book again every so often, but for now, we're going to get into something a little bit fun here on the channel, which is deciding what careers the Greek gods would have if they were made mortal. So let's get into it. Okay, yes, this isn't a proper video, but it's a fun one, and I'm a fun person, so we're doing fun things. And I'm not going to go through any particular order with the gods, I'm just going to go based on how I'm feeling about it. So we're going to be starting first with Hestia, because Hestia is the best and deserves more recognition. And admittedly, I'm also kind of starting with something sad, because for Hestia, she is obviously the goddess of the hearth. So I have made her, as per the books did, the only Olympian left, and she is still on Olympus, waiting for her family to return. Why did I start with the sad one? Then we have Hades, who obviously is someone who's always consistently been regulated to being forgotten by his family. And, you know, it sucks, but he's also a pretty good guy. He has his problems, but he's still a pretty good guy because, you know, he deals with death, he deals with situations like that. He's not really been as bad as some of the other gods, Poseidon and Zeus. So I've decided to kind of give him a little bit of a twist. It's still something related to death that he is involved with for a career, but it is the prevention of death in that he is working for a suicide hotline. By the way, there are links in the description box down below if you are in need of services such as these. Most of them are for pretty much every country in the world. It is the very bottom link in the description box. If you do need help, be sure to follow that link. And honestly, the only reason why I think Hades would be working at a suicide prevention hotline service is because, well, we've seen in the books in general and just like different modern adaptations to do with Hades, is that he doesn't want more death. Like, the underworld is overcrowded as it is. He wants to prevent death. It also makes me think a bit about this Korean drama called Tomorrow, which is about Grim Reapers creating a suicide prevention division of the afterlife, where they specifically go out of their way to try and stop people from committing suicide and helping them through those struggles to get them to a better place. And I can see Hades doing something like that. So yes, Hades as a suicide prevention hotline assistant. I'm also still continuing with the sad ones. Let's move into something a little less sad. Athena. Athena's an art teacher or a lecturer. It'd be specifically like art history and architecture related stuff. No, I had originally thought about her being someone who is like a battle strategist or someone who works with war, but I don't like that. So I like the idea of her more being basically kind of leaning into her arts and crafts side of things by being an art teacher or an art history teacher or a lecturer of some sort in relation to art, focusing on architecture and needlework and what's the thing that they do? What was the competition she was in? Oh God. I can't even think what it is. But it's stuff with needles and I was going to say pointillism, but that's a type of, it's not knitting. You all know what I mean, but yes, Athena would, in a sense, be an arts and crafts teacher or lecturer because I like it. Demeter would be a harvest farmer because she kind of already is. She also has kids who are farmers, technically, or like gods of farmers, so I could see her working on a farm. And Persephone, in relation to that, because obviously daughter, would be an environmentalist. So she would work with her mother on the farm here and there during the springtime period, and then go and do her environmentalist activism stuff on the side during the winter periods. And I don't know, I just like it. It feels like it would fit their vibe. But in a similar vein, I also think Apollo would be like a climate change activist sort of person. Like, he is the sun god. He is probably well aware of the fact that, you know, the planet is heating up and things are dying quickly. And he realised, you know, the damage that he did as the sun god with kind of not really helping to fix that, but also mainly seeing the fact that people are the problem. So becoming a climate change activist and scientist to help fix that and help people realise we gotta sort things out or we're all gonna die. But in realist terms, we do need to start sorting things out, because otherwise we are gonna... Let's move away. I also do think he would be a slam poetry artist. So he'll be doing his climate science stuff during the day and going to slam poetry competitions at night. And he'll actually be better as a poet in mortal form. Not because of what we saw with Leicester, because he was still bad at that then, but because he'll be around actual poets and learning from the greats. So I quite like that. Just for another fun one, Zeus would just be in jail. We all know what Zeus is like, so there is no doubt in my mind that he would be in prison for the many things that he does, and quite right, he deserves to be there. In the vein of Zeus and his shenanigans, Hera has become a divorce attorney because Zeus is a dick, and she's like, you know what, I'm sick of this shit. Oh, that rhymed. And so she became a divorce attorney. At first she was like a couples counsellor, realised, you know, as a counsellor, I realise that my relationship with my husband is not that great, so screw being a goddess of marriage, I'm now a goddess of divorce. And divorces him and becomes a divorce attorney to help women realise, and men, of course, helps anyone realise that their relationship sometimes isn't always worth saving, because sometimes the person you're with is an arsehole. Good for her. Artemis would be the sort of person who would work at Planned Parenthood or in health services in relation to pregnancies in general, because she's also been the goddess of childbirth. And so I quite like the idea of her working with services for people who are pregnant and working in services for those who no longer wish to be, because she's definitely going to be a pro-choice person, because I say she is. And so yeah, I would like to see her be working in Planned Parenthood or just in the health services in general. And also probably be an advocate, because if we're still doing this in America, an advocate for free healthcare. Because I looked at a bill once for someone who lives in the US and I wanted to cry. So yeah, she'd be an advocate for free healthcare. Fun. Hephaestus would be an inventor. He would also be bringing more interest into blacksmithing in like the modern day, because like obviously there are still blacksmiths about. I went and did like an experience at a blacksmithing forge here in the UK, like only a couple of hours away, and it was awesome and I really enjoyed it. So I could see him being a really good inventor and then mentor to people who want to get into the profession and just really bring it into the modern age and more people being aware of it. I could even say, he did the Hephaestus TV. I could even see him having his own blacksmithing TV show. I'd watch it. What would it be called? Hephaestus? Yeah, he'd probably just call it Hephaestus's Forge. Oh my god, someone needs to make this. Actually, I'm not that good of a blacksmith. I can't even. I'll speak to my friend Eli. Eli will know. Anyway, yes, Hephaestus would be an inventor and a blacksmith, because that's what he already is, just as a mortal. And then Aries, this may surprise people. I think Aries would be a military support, is a military support officer, but someone who would like work with veterans to support them after the services and, you know, make sure that they're getting the right support that they need and deserve and stuff like that, and, you know, help get veterans off the street and things like that. Like, I think he'd be that sort of advocate, because God knows we need some of that. I also think he'd be the sort of person to make it clear to people who are being recruited at schools that this is not your only option, because why do you go to schools to recruit people for the armed forces? That's questionable. So he'd probably be fighting against that. So I'm just basically putting my own thoughts into this, but admittedly, it won't be Aries. It'd probably mainly be Mars who does stuff like that, because if you've been listening to my podcast, Mars is the better half. So I could see him being the sort of person doing all this sort of stuff. So maybe Aries is just a bit more of his Mars influence when he's mortal. That'll work. Dionysus, this may half surprise people, but I could see him as the sort of person who would become like an AA sponsor or run AA group meetings. So instead of being the party goer, he'd realise that, you know, there is a lot of problems with addiction in the world and help people who have addictive tendencies, you know, work through their addictions and support them through them. Because technically that's kind of what's been happening to him in the Percy Jackson world, but maybe it'll be the case of he realises, hey, maybe I did need this, because being a party god isn't always the most beneficial to me. I could also see him working in mental health services as a whole, because obviously he is it a god of madness, but he works with madness of a sort. So because he supports Nico during Tower of Nero with like therapy services basically. So I could see him doing something similar as well, both with AA, group sponsorship, and mental health advocate. He'd do a lot of different things. I can see it. Maybe he's still running the camp, and then kind of providing those services, not the AA stuff, or maybe the AA stuff's for the older demigods. I'm going off on a tangent right now, but I could see him as a good advocate for things like this. Poseidon, I could see as someone who's just like a diver, like he does that sort of like coral reef protection sort of stuff, where they're trying to help preserve coral reefs because they're, kind of being killed by people being stupid and doing terrible things to the oceans. So I can see him as the sort of person who's helping to restore coral reefs. But I also think he'd end up in prison at one point as well. This isn't technically the Percy Jackson version of Poseidon, but based on mythology version of Poseidon, he'd be in jail. He'd be in jail for something, probably similar things to Zeus. So he'd be doing pretty well as like a coral reef person, and then he does something really horrible, and they get him thrown in prison. I can see it happening. He's a douchebag. Last but not least, because she is the oldest, Aphrodite. Now, Aphrodite, originally I was going to have her as like a, what are they called? Like a love show, a love reality show, like that whole Love is Blind or Love Island sort of stuff. It's like a host for one of those shows. But then she realises that this is not the kind of romance that is good or healthy or something she can even enjoy anymore, because it like drains her being part of things like that. So she goes on to become a couples therapist instead, and her and Hera kind of work hand in hand, of like, she's a couples therapist when she realises, hey, probably this isn't working out. She then refers them to Hera, and vice versa. If Hera has like a divorcee couple, or couples deciding whether or not to divorce, she says maybe go seek therapy from Aphrodite first to see whether or not you do actually want to go through this divorce. Maybe they'll be part of like the same firm. I could see that. And maybe Artemis will be involved in some way too, because it's like all her free healthcare advocacy, and obviously the whole situation with Roe v. Wade at the moment, getting involved with that and being like, yeah, just have all the women gods being involved together in some form. They've got like they all work together to make things good. And then some of the other, I think Dionysus and Hades would probably be involved in some way too. I don't know, this is just a really random like dump of thoughts of what I think the gods would be doing if they were mortals or living in the mortal world and had to get jobs. Maybe I should write something about this. Maybe I should just write a fanfic about this of like what they would do. I don't know, this is actually quite fun. What do you think the gods would have as jobs if they were mortal or had to live mortal lives and had to get jobs? Because I'm intrigued as to what sort of careers you think they would have. So let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on what jobs the gods would have, because this is actually quite a lot of fun. Even if it is chaotic, it was a lot of fun to come up with. So yes, thank you all so much for tuning into this video. I hope you enjoyed this strange direction. I'll be getting back into like the theories and discussion stuff. I've got a really big and fun mini series I'm going to be doing here on the channel, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, as always, be sure to pick up my debut novel, Home to the Wild, if you like found families, wolves, Tarzan, all that sort of good stuff. Linked in the description box down below. If you want to support me, check out my Patreon. Be sure to hit subscribe, leave a comment, share with your friends. And yeah, again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.